Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me this evening or late afternoon, depending on where you are in the United States or potentially not in the United States. My name is Levi Rosman. I am the COO here at Bentham. I manage various workflow for us, as well as some sales and marketing as well. I work closely with Keith Espinosa, who you probably saw in our previous presentation on the Ivy League schools. And today we'll be talking about BSMD and the pre-medicine track. So, handful of you are just getting in here. This is what our agenda is for the evening. Once again, if you already watched our first webinar of 2020, that one on the Ivy League schools, we always give a little introduction as to admissions consulting and what Bentham's role in it is. If it's a little bit repetitive, I do apologize, bear with me. Then we'll jump into the BSMD pre-med breakdown, and then we will discuss the ideal applicant. That's where really the most important portions of our presentation this evening will be, and we will finish with a couple of case study statistics, and as always, because this is a live webinar, we get questions from the audience, and that is what we encourage. So, I'm going to run through this very briefly. If this is your first time at one of our webinars, admissions consulting is a full service kind of platform as far as we are concerned, where we help a student maximize his or her chances of acceptance into an undergraduate program based on a school list, based on their student portfolio, their testing, their background, their extracurriculars, and so on. We help with everything and anything you might imagine, and our ability to help the student as much as possible just depends on when we start working with them. Now, the second portion of this slide that you're seeing has highlighted contrarian positioning. That is really our core methodology. It's what we implement and utilize to angle our students in to the top universities based on various benchmarks and preferences of the schools, utilizing things like the undersubscribed majors and creating a narrative bolstered by the extracurricular activities of the student to help them stand out. Now, our goal is to help make the college process as seamless as possible. Things as trivial as the essay editing and the deadlines and having someone manage the high schooler. With what we'll be seeing today is really getting our expertise and our strategy. It's really what sets us apart and can help you set yourselves apart. All right, let's jump into really what you're all here today for. The BSMD pre-medicine breakdown. We're going to start with the one that is definitely more rigorous, maybe a bit more nebulous for some of you, and that is BSMD. Now, BSMD, which stands for Bachelor of Science, medical doctor, they are a combined application program between 6 and 8 years where you apply to an undergraduate school, have to gain acceptance, and then it basically propels you to the medical school level going forward. So these programs exist at such schools as Brown, Northwestern. Those are the top two, but other schools as well, which you might not be as familiar with because they might not necessarily be in the Ivy League. And getting into some of these schools is as difficult in some of these programs as getting into a Tier 1 or a Tier 2 college. You'll notice it says hard in, hard out, hard in, easy out. All that means is it's always difficult to get in, but in some of these programs, you actually have to maintain a core GPA or else you get booted and you have to then reapply to their medical school program. Okay? This is a long commitment, and you have to have intense leadership excellence and so on. So let's talk about what these programs look for. You have to be a 99th percentile student in your grades and your test scores. Now, really, what we advocate for is the math and the science components. Your AP biology, your AP chemistry, your AP physics, your math. Those grades need to be top tier. You can pass with an A-, a B+ in some subjects that are not pertinent to BSMD. But if you are taking a rigorous course load in science and math, you have to stand out. You have to have a compelling reason and a narrative as to why you want to be a doctor. Helping people or witnessing some sort of injury to a loved one or potentially yourself is a decent reason. We will help you develop a better one and angle yourself in an advantageous manner. Now, this third one, robust extracurriculars. Research. And when you work with us, well, we'll talk about what an ideal applicant looks like in a moment here. We'll help you find the right research. Clinical, your doctor shadowing, things of that nature, working with a potential person that's local, looking in an emergency room, and then volunteering. And that last one can be kind of flexibly applied. And one thing, the fourth bullet point on this looking for, the interview. Now, you might think, why is that important here? It's important everywhere. All these top universities at this point are inviting candidates they're interested in for interviews. No. We found that for general application, if you're just applying to a top university, which is not BSMD, the interview that you're doing with an alumni, borderline worthless. Might be shocking for some of you. I'm sure that you either have experience or have read somewhere that these things, as long as, short of you doing something crazy at that interview, it's just a pleasantry. The interview for the BSMD program is with a member of the board of the program that you are applying to, medical board. They might be practicing doctors, and they hold a tremendous value. And we really, really strongly grind our students in this component of their application. You could be a bulletproof student in every other component and not have a good interview. So, as I mentioned, very rigorous, but BSMD will set you up for incredible things in the future. It's obviously one of the most prestigious kind of programs that exists, which is why certain schools like the Brown PLME program have a 3% acceptance rate, which is lower than Stanford Gen Ed, which is about 4%. Now, having said all that, pre-medicine is not a structured program. Pre-medicine can be a standard undergraduate application and just a track that prepares you for medical school. Now, you have to have still very good math and science grades. There is a core curriculum that you do have to fulfill if you're going to apply to med school. They look for strong grades and scores. Here is where we will focus on our contrarian positioning angle, potentially utilizing some of your hobbies or things that you excel at that don't necessarily align with being a doctor, but we could potentially use to make you a very, very strong applicant on another front. You do have to have a strong narrative, but it doesn't necessarily have to be extremely pertinent to medicine, and well-rounded students that are good learners, because we are going just the general direction of undergraduate. Now, we have a lot more flexibility when it comes to pre-medicine because we can choose a lot of schools rather than choosing the schools that only have this kind of combined BSMD track. Let's talk a little bit about how we would approach working with some of you. We've got close to 40 of you watching at the moment. If you're watching the replay of this, you obviously were not here for the live show. But if you're watching at home and you're wondering, okay, what would it look like if you and I started working together, right? Let's move into that for a moment. So our approach to the BSMD application would be multi-pronged. First things first, it always obviously depends on when you start working with us, but if we had it any way we wanted it, in a perfect way, the summer planning, we would encourage you to get research position, volunteering, and shadowing doctor. You can mix two in one of these, you can go all three into one direction, but you need to show consistency and dedication and a love for learning. And we help you find these things. Specialization, specific area of study. Why? This one is not as, let's say necessary. You can be a diversified applicant. You can do a little bit of pediatric work, a little bit of orthopedic work. But we do think that it does help with a degree of a narrative if you are staying a little bit consistent, not looking as though you're just jumping around trying to stack your application with anything that can stick. Your school list, which pertains to continuity, narrative of where makes sense. if you want to practice, if you're from a big city, but you have a love for potentially small town and places where you know that folks with access to medicine might not necessarily have it, that's something that might potentially make sense to you. Or if you're looking at schools that don't serve underprivileged communities as well, things of that nature, that is something that we help you with throughout your BSMD application. Now, things that you have to do, whether you're the high schooler watching right now, you're the parent of the high schooler, you need to maintain strong grades. One of the things that we unfortunately don't do is tutor you through your science classes. If they're difficult, or your math classes, we can help you find those tutors, but that is on the student. Your test scores, your academic rigor, and your consistency. Once you commit to a BSMD application in your senior year, or in your junior year, or in your sophomore year, we're going to be putting you in extracurricular activities which pertain to your application. So you can't have a moment where you just decide that I can't do this. It is a commitment, and it is, I've been saying it over and over again throughout the course of this presentation, it's something that can set you up for the remainder of your life, but you have to be ready to take that journey and do that work. The pre-medical application, or the pre-med track, is a little bit more, I should say, flexible, a little bit less crazy, a little bit less rigorous. But if you're somebody watching at the moment, I've spoken to a handful of folks over the past couple of weeks that do have a degree of interest in pre-medicine, maybe BSMD, and I've told them very similar things. The summer planning is important, but in the summer, competitions, research is great, jobs, a potential job in retail, just showing that you're active and you're working. And really here, instead of specialization, it's going to be the positioning that helps you out a lot. If you're someone that's really involved in art or social justice, that is an angle that we love. It really allows us to excel with a lot of different extracurriculars and our essay writing and things of that nature. And the school list will be a little bit more general, but we'll try to make it make sense. Why are you applying to certain programs? Are you applying to Brown because you love academic freedom? Or are you applying to a Johns Hopkins because you love the biotechnology and the engineering, and you took a trip there a couple summers ago, you visited, and you're showing a commitment to the school. It allows us to be a little bit more flexible in our approach, rather than BSMD is the rigorous element, and the degree of the school is top notch. And well, your student tasks are the same: grades, test scores, leadership, and angularity. Now, I want to give all of you an insight into what will separate this general presentation with what is behind the paywall. I would love to give you all the answers. I would love to help you as much as I possibly can, but some things do have to be reserved for clients that are working with us and investing, in their future. Now, paywall benefits. This one's important because ultimately, those of you tuning in will be making the decision of whether or not you want to spend X amount of dollars on your son or daughter, where they are in their high school year at the moment, to maximize their chances of getting into a school working with us. So we'll help you build a narrative and seek opportunities. Now, it depends on if you're coming to us as a sophomore or as a junior. You might already be a little bit late to the process, but we've been speaking to underclassmen the whole week. And since our last webinar, we've onboarded certain people, and we hit the ground running. And especially if you're a sophomore, junior, looking at these pre-medical or BSMD applications, it's going to be rigorous. We are going to work hard. We're going to put you on a timeline, which is point number 3. But before that, point number 2, we'll build strategies based on the kind of a school list that you want. For example, if you work on a 6-school package with Bentham, we might separate that into a couple of reach schools based on everything in the portfolio, really maximize our attempt at pinpointing those target schools that we want to hit, depending on grades, scores, the background, how much extracurricular work you've done to fit a good narrative. And the last one really pertains more to senior year, but I'm just trying to give you kind of this insight. You've got to understand the whole process of admissions. It's brutal. It takes hours and hours every week to constantly handcraft your essay and get told whether or not you're hitting the right points for the right schools. You're paying for expertise. That's what you're investing in. Those things are behind the paywall. we will give you the best common application personal statement and supplemental essay crafting, review, constant communication with the client, interview preparation, as we said, as it pertains to BSMD, and probably more than anything else is that workflow management element. You're going to be working with someone who is managing the high schooler. There is a degree of timelines that are involved, whether that's senior year and you need to get me a draft and then I'm going to get it back to you by this certain moment. Or if you're a junior, you need to get me 15 contacts of people you'd like to contact in your local area that I've helped build for you so that we can build a template and then send it out to those people. So I think that's it's quite a detailed explanation of what that kind of investment would look like and what you would be getting out of it. I'm trying to be as detailed as possible in my approach, but at the same time, certain things are behind paywall. Now, a couple of statistics for you here. These are some numbers that we had for this presentation. 46% of those of you watching at home, and if you're watching the replay, might not pertain to you, but 46% of you are juniors. If you're seriously considering BSMD and you've done a couple of things in your 9th and 10th grade summer, and you really want to do BSMD, you need to start working with us or on your portfolio now. Right now. I mean, this second. Like, go do some research right after this webinar is over. Because you need to hit the you need to secure an opportunity for the summer. You need to build that application if you're going to do BSMD. They're going to be asking you, what were you doing your entire underclassmen career? Another element of this is that 91% of the webinar signups for today were East and South Asian. Now, in our case studies, we do have a Southeast Asian male and an East Asian female, but those of you that are East and South Asian, BSMD is a rigorous, I mean, it is a competitive landscape for East and South Asians, much more competitive given the smaller application size. And we work on these elements and helping these students stand out. So with that said, let's jump into the case studies. The first one might look familiar if you've already been here for the past webinar. That one is Southeast Asian male came to us after getting rejected from Yale Early Decision with 4 Bs, and he had an interest in pre-medicine. Now, you'll recall for pre-medicine, our approach was a little bit more contrarian. We wanted to get him into an undersubscribed major. We found something within his portfolio that could go for anthropology, and he was accepted. And we got him in through that route. And then he ultimately made that change to pre-medicine. Case study 2, Caucasian female, also interested in pre-medicine, accepted early decision into Duke with a public policy positioning because of her background, some of her extracurriculars, and her interests that she reflected in a questionnaire with us. We got our research position in the summer, some community volunteering. An East Asian female did research in artificial intelligence. Bit of a more social justice positioning, given some of her, again, her interests and things that she's done. Some volunteering, creating a club, for example, for a certain demographic, like I said, underrepresented folks in the community, or girls in STEM or things of that nature. And she was accepted into a top BSMD program and 3 Ivy League schools. These are case studies on our end who we took, tried to apply our entire methodology, and it was a success. And last webinar, some of those numbers at the top were our success rates of certain schools. But I think this is important. This is a very important thing to note. About half of the folks that signed up are in their junior year trying to figure out if they're good enough based on their test scoring, their grades. And if you're watching right now and you are one of those people, have a conversation with us. If you're a sophomore, have a conversation with us just to see where you're at and what you can expect. That's pretty much it for today. We don't want to take up a whole bunch of your time. At this point, I'd like to open it up. There's 45 of you watching. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can. Some folks, well, I guess I will say this. Some folks reach out and try to get as much free advice from us as possible. Listen, we're happy to help. But like I said, there is a degree of expertise that we can't always disclose everything. So I'll give it a couple of minutes for the live feed to catch up. Just type your questions in the chat, and if you don't want to do that, you want to get in touch, info@benthamadmissions.com is the best way to go. You might have gotten an email from me, levy.rosman@Bentham, Keith. I believe Keith actually was in the chat. Listen, I hope this was helpful. I'm trying to make it as thorough but as quick as possible so that you get the bullet points, you get an understanding of where you are and what you can expect depending on where you are in high school at the moment and what you see yourself doing in the future in a potential career or things of that nature. So I will give it a couple of seconds here. If there are no questions, then we will sign off. And actually, this part will be edited out. Okay, first question: where can I get research opportunities? Well, that's actually something that we help with. Might be with some college professors, for example, depending on where you are located geographically. Some places, in big cities, there are more opportunities. That's really the one that we push for a lot. But there's a variety of places, and I should say that research doesn't necessarily always have to be in the realm of what you see yourself doing in the future. Just as long as it gets published. Could be within computer science. Could be a startup, potentially. Could be doing a little bit of research work there, just anywhere. If your test scores are average, well, actually, we just got this question. I was talking to, I've been talking to a few families that don't yet have their test scores locked. They're still taking some tests, and they don't know if they want to work with us. Well, the thing is, we will adjust the school list based on the test scores. If your test scores are okay, meaning they're, okay means different things for everybody. What I'm saying is it might be not 95th percentile, but it might be 80th percentile. For example, low 1400s on the SAT. We can still go for a BSMD program, but you better be damn sure that narrative, those extracurriculars have to bolster that application. Because at that very, very top level, those test scores are either separated by 0, 10, 20 points. No one is getting in or not at the highest level of these programs based on the scores. It's about your interview. It's about your extracurriculars, your angularity, your positioning, and things of that nature. But if your scores are average, you're not even hitting that top tier. That means that we have to set the reach and the target school slightly differently. So, the best time to start with Bentham. I mean, as soon as you wish. See, there is always an argument. Well, I can save money, right, if I wait a little bit longer. But it all depends on what your own personal budget and your personal goals are. If we work with someone that's a freshman, we get to set them up on a course from their freshman year throughout high school. We get to build that relationship. We get to know the student better. And in working with us those 2-3 years, they get to develop these skills that they don't then have to cram into learning junior year. If you start in junior year, but you've never really had an experience of application consulting, then you gotta really jump in, and there's a bit of a bigger learning curve, if you kind of understand what I'm saying, in terms of writing the essays for whatever, for your summer positions and things of that nature. We have a little bit less time to work with you. We're still gonna be intense. So it comes down to a personal goal. If you're a freshman and you want to start working, great. But ultimately, it'll come down to those test scores in the future, and then we'll have to change the target and the reach and so on. Is there a list of universities that? Yeah, but that's a simple Google search. You can get an easy list of BSMD programs, and we have a list on our end and our strategies for each one. That one, I'm not so sure I can publicize. It might help too many people. Ava says that been working with different organizations for fundraising, flown out to work with a hospital. How will this help you? Well, and then the second question is, what's more important, AP Chem or AP Bio? If you're applying to pre-medicine or BSMD, they're equally important. Depends maybe in the future what kind of an undergraduate you're looking for, but equally important. And you need to do very well in both of them. If you're struggling in one of them and pre-med or BSMD is on your horizon, find some help. Get a upperclassman tutor, work with a parent, personal tutor, local tutor. Working with a children's hospital is fantastic. It's obviously, you're doing something that in your sophomore year at the moment. It's just about being consistent. And then ultimately, those extracurriculars that you come in with, if you work with someone like us, we then help you build a narrative that then makes sense, that you might want to represent communities, children in communities that don't have a lot of access to medicine. A compelling case for why you want to study medicine at one of these top universities. That's what we do. We will take that strategic approach with everything you've given us. Because you have to understand, for everything that you do that you think you're doing great, college admissions in the United States is incredibly competitive. There is probably someone out there that is doing more, or has a slightly better test score, or has slightly better grades. And so you've got to stand out against not hundreds, not that, tens of thousands of people. So it's very, very competitive. That's just what we've seen in the past 5, 10, 15 years. Shadowing in a foreign country, as long as it is a relevant position with a reference, yes. I would say that yes. Next question, as it pertains to the research position, yes, of course. If I haven't made that abundantly clear, one of the benefits of working with us will be the fact that we help you find these things. There's certain things, I'll go back to, this is one of them. Of course we help you find the research position. Geographic location, whether that's at a university or an organization, of course, that's why you would invest in this kind of an opportunity. If you could do these things on your own and, dedicate those hours, that is something that you would be able to do without us. I guess this is maybe this is a good slide to keep here. What's considered a good grade? A+. A- are fine. But only if you're absolutely fantastic in your extracurriculars and things of that nature. How can you position yourself in undersubscribed major? It is possible. There are ways to do it. The best thing that I can describe, when you apply to a program through an angle of contrarian positioning, is we build your application, and sometimes that involves removing certain elements of it, or finding new ways to tell a story of why you took a certain class. Of course, everybody watching right now is taking the top classes so that they get the best GPA possible, show that they challenged themselves, and got into the top universities. That's why we take tough classes. Listen, if everybody could take gym class every single class period in a school and get through and still get into an Ivy League school, they would. School's not that, it's much more fun to run around. That's why we all do these things. So what we do with some of these cases, like on this slide, is we cut off certain elements of the application that don't help us, that just look like we're doing a lot of things to look well-rounded as opposed to specializing. So if you're doing something in medicine in the summer already, and you're taking AP biology, there is still room in there, depending on what kind of a person you are and things that you like. You might like music, you might like art. If you don't like any of those things, okay, then for you, positioning might be not something that we do. Instead, we go all in on a certain other angle. But we've got students that come to us all the time that have an interest in pre-medicine or mathematics or computer science, but they're incredible musicians, or they've done incredible things in martial arts or sports. Those are angles that you can take to get into a program and then take the pre-med route. People underestimate this, I think. So, friends, thank you so much for your questions. Maybe one or two before we sign off. I do like to keep this about half an hour for those watching. Get in touch. Those of you that receive my webinar link, you can just reply directly to that email address. I am always available for a quick email. Generally, the best next steps to take if you're interested is to set up just an initial conversation. That's a completely free phone call. where you talk to us with a transcript, a list of activities, and we kind of get to know each other a little bit, and we try to give you a little deeper dive, potentially give you a few of these things that are potentially behind the paywall, so you can get an understanding of what working with us would be like and where your money is going. I mean, full transparency, that really is it at the end of the day. You might have a budget and you might have an expectation, and we would like to meet that. We will work as diligently as possible to maximize acceptance into our reach, our target, and our safety schools. If going down the pre-med track, I'll take this question, then we will sign off. How important is the name of the undergraduate school? Pretty damn important, but it's not a, you want to get into a program that you can dominate. If you're a humanities person, you can get into a top humanities or liberal arts college, dominate it academically, and then apply to pre-medicine. That is a way. For example, Pomona College. That is actually on our list of pre-med target schools. So I encourage everybody, find a way to get in touch, whether that's through my email address or the info one. I'm sure you have received a marketing email from us. So thank you for not going too crazy with these. Feel free to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We will be posting more videos, probably not webinar style, much more just posting and then you can watch in your convenience. And, well, I hope this was interesting. I hope this was informative, and I hope it set you some benchmarks on BSMD and pre-medicine going forward. And you know what to do. You know where to find us if you'd like to take the next steps. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your evening and a good weekend.